Call a Thursday, May 7th work session to order. First item on the agenda would be the April 16th work session notes. Any changes?
Have none.
None.
Okay, none. Stand as written. Next item on the agenda, Ellis County funding request.
Pardon me, Toby Doherty, City Manager. The City Commission is in receipt of a letter from the Ellis County Commission requesting funding, assistance for the Northwest Corridor Project. And at this point, I would entertain any questions you may have that I may be able to answer. I know there are county representatives here, or we would ask if you would like to provide us with any direction.
I don't have any questions, Toby, but I'm really not prepared to discuss this tonight. I think, I've got some really positive thoughts about everything going on, but as we're looking at our budget and everything that we're coming up starting in June, I think I'd rather move this to June discussion if it's me.
I would also, but I do have a comment that I'd like to, I am very happy that the county got their sales tax passed. I think it will be good for them. It will be good for our community. As if I understand this right, state law is that the city is allowed to keep a certain amount of the tax, correct?
Right, on a tax such as the one that was passed, the quarter-cent portion of it, all taxing jurisdictions within the county keep a portion, and then the county itself keeps a portion. So Hayes, Ellis, Victoria, Shin will all keep a portion of that quarter-cent, as well as the county as a whole.
And in the past, we have helped out with other, like the rebuild of the courthouse.
In between 2013 and 2018, the city commission gave up the city's share of a half-cent sales tax to help fund the law enforcement center, courthouse remodel, and rural fire EMS facility creation.
Do we know how much that was?
I believe it was a little over $8 million.
Well, I guess for me, it's more of a comment because I don't think any of us want to really discuss this until we have our retreat, if we do have that later in June. To me, we owe the taxpayers to work together, and I think we do work together as a county and a city. Many people don't know like what gets done, whether it's county or city. They just expect it to be done. They want their roads, different stuff taken care of. What frustrated me is when I got up, I don't know what day it was, and I hear I guess it was on the radio, and it says that we owe the county. And I think we owe the county to work together with them. And I'm for their project that they're doing, but this isn't our project. If we can help them, I think we should. But, we've all got our own issues that we have to deal with financially now. And I just think we need to be smart about how we do that. But I also think anytime, any year, that we should always work with the county. I think the taxpayers want us to do that, but I just, I think when you hear that statement that we owe them, that just kind of frustrated me a little bit. But it's just my opinion. I'm not speaking for the commission. That's just my opinion. When I heard that, I just kind of took me back a little bit. But I think later is a better time to discuss this.
And again, I don't want this to come across as I'm negative or anything about this, because I'm not. I've had conversations with county commissioners about this in the past and the potential. I'm just not prepared to discuss it right this minute.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think it's premature at this time to decide what we would do with our portion of that sales tax. As a new commissioner, I'm at this point we didn't have our retreat. Maybe that's the way things work out. It might be better that we're having it a little bit later, because that is something that I think we want to kind of hammer out is what we want to do as a commission and what projects that we each kind of want to look towards. So from that standpoint, we've also been, in the last few weeks, my focus, I think of the other commissioners, is on what we voted on last time. Mm-hmm. And so to think about what else we might be doing at this time again, I think it's just a little bit premature.
And I think because of this COVID-19 thing, and we rely on sales tax heavily to fund our budget, that we shouldn't be discussing this until we see where we're at, because we have to take care of ourselves first. And so I don't want to even think about discussing this until we have a full grasp on what our budget is going to look like, and what it looks like, even for next year's budget. So I'd rather wait.
For somebody that doesn't want to comment, I'm saying a lot of words.
That's our job.
I don't mean to do that, but I have said from the very beginning, I think, and I call it the Northwest Passage. I know that was in history somewhere. But the business corridor, I think, is really, really important to our community in a lot of ways. How we participate in that activity, I think we'll decide as a body, and just not yet.
I would agree. I will say, Commissioner Roth is here. Do we need anything? I don't need anything from him. Do you guys have any questions for him that you want to ask while he's here?
And Mr. Mayor, Ellis County is my employer, so I'll be recusing myself from discussions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you guys for coming. Next item on the agenda, resolution setting a public hearing for consideration of establishing the Tallgrass Second Edition Rural Housing Incentive District.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. We are in receipt of an application for a Rural Housing Incentive District, or RHID, from Heart of America Development Corporation. Their project involves the development of street and additional infrastructure to serve approximately 75 residential housing lots located northeast of the intersection of 22nd and Wheatland. The developer is requesting RHID financing on a pay-as-you-go basis for 25 years. This map shows the site of the proposed housing development. So at that corner, this is the proposed housing development. To the west here is NCK. Total cost of the project is estimated to be $3,210,600. All of that is eligible for RHID reimbursement. The term of the RHID is 25 years, with the incremental property tax over the 25 years estimated to be $3,227,355. The Commission previously adopted a resolution making certain housing needs findings, which is the unique proponent of an RHID. And following adoption and publication, the resolution was sent to the Kansas Secretary of Commerce for approval. That moved the creation process forward, and the Kansas Secretary of Commerce did approve that through a letter dated April 3rd, 2020. The next step in the statutory process is to set a public hearing to hear public comment on the consideration of the establishment of that RHID. If the Commission approves the resolution being considered, a public hearing would be set for June 25th, 2020. Following the public hearing, the Commission would consider an ordinance establishing the RHID and adopting a development plan. If the RHID is established, the development plan adopted, the city and the developer would enter into a development agreement that governs the rights and responsibilities of the parties. And the ordinance would become effective following a 30-day veto period. So if you choose to move this item to next week, your options would be to approve the resolution, decline, or provide us with other direction. And next week, our recommendation and action requested will be to approve the resolution.
I just have one question. I think I know the answer, but I want to confirm. We're looking at phase 1 and phase 2 both in this, and not phase 3.
Actually, it would encompass all phases.
All of them? Okay.
The developer indicated that phase 3 would be dependent on how the other two phases.
Right.
Okay.
Doug, are we using, excuse me, the builders that we're working with, these are all local builders that we're going to be supposedly working with? Okay.
But it's open to anyone, right?
It would be open to anyone, and I say local. One of them is a local that's
Doug, I think you should come
Oh,
up
yeah,
and
sorry.
identify yourself,
I
even though we all know you.
should have known that. Thank you, Doug.
I'm Doug Williams, Executive Director of Go Hayes, and here representing Heart of America Development also. And to answer your question, all of the builders are local in some form or another. Now, one of them is partnering with a guy out of Salina, and so, we can call that local or not, but the majority of the activity will be with local builders.
And you have some enthusiasm for that from local builders.
I do. We have. Now, we're in uncharted waters
Right.
at this point in time. None of us really knows what this is all going to look like come August when this finally gets adopted. The plan at this point would be, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, unless something significant changes between now and August and would want to slow things down. I wish we had them right now because, ironically, the real estate market is just outstanding right now.
I don't know if you can go to the map there, just so I'm clear. The RHID encompasses the whole thing, right?
That's correct.
Because this map that I'm looking at, phase 1, 2, and 3, but
The
district
RHID encompasses the whole thing. We intend to build it out based on the color coding.
And remind me, I know I've asked this question, why is it just one encompassing RHID versus having one for phase 1, one for phase 2, and one for phase 3?
Couple reasons. One of them is just the additional cost to go through the process each time with a new RHID. Another reason is if you went with 3 of them, they could be 2, 3, 4, 5 years apart. I don't really know how this commission's going to sit 2, 3, or 5 years from now. So I'm putting my money on you guys. And so it was just as a function of cost effectiveness and simplicity more than anything else.
I have a comment about this project, and I've liked it from the very beginning. I think it's really needed in our community. And I've been on a number, as we all have been on a number of Zoom meetings with different entities, and three out of 5 Zoom meetings, we talked about the opportunities that we'll have possibly in more rural areas because of the COVID-19, that people have found how easy it is to work remotely. I know 3 people that live in Kansas City that are out here working remotely and doing just fine. And I think we may see some opportunity with people wanting to get out of congestion, wherever that congestion might be, and see the opportunities that we have here in Hayes. So this is what I hope is the first of more than one development, but this one looks really suited to that kind of an activity. So I'm excited about it.
We feel the same way. We feel like there are people maybe that don't think New York is exactly where they might want to live now, and this virus has shown people that working remotely can be done, and so we want to put our hand up and say this is a good place.
This is where you
to
want to come. That's right. And then they can be down a brief space and live out in the new development. That's
Got
a
it.
good thing.
I've had people just the last couple of weeks ask me, is this still going through and stuff like that. So that's exciting when people are bringing that up.
Sure.
Just out of the blue.
Sure, I'm glad that it has the attention, and,
Yeah.
and obviously, Heart of America is going to look at the situation when it comes time to spend that first $1.5 million for that first street and,
Sure.
and sewer and that kind of thing. But I'm confident that we're going to proceed. So,
That's great.
anything else?
I think so. Moving on. Moving on.
Thank you.
Moving on. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
Next item on the agenda, North Vine Street Corridor Project, designation of main traffic ways for purposes of general obligation bond financing.
Jim Rupp, Director of Finance. Bids for the construction of the North Vine Street corridor were opened by KDOT on March 25th, and the low bid was Smoky Hill of Salina. City previously authorized KDOT to move forward with awarding the bid to Smoky Hill. The city's share of the project costs will be primarily financed with general obligation bonds to be issued in the future, and the debt service for that coming from transient guest tax. This ordinance that you're considering or may consider is designating certain streets as main traffic ways. It's the first step in authorizing the project for GO financing under Kansas law. The Main Traffic Way Act, which is KSA 12-685, allows for financing certain main traffic way improvements with general obligation bonds using a two-step process. The first step involves designating the streets as main traffic ways, and such designation by the governing body is final and conclusive under the Act. City has previously designated certain streets within the city as main traffic ways. Those are codified in Section 62-90 of City Code. Those streets included Vine, Roth, General Hayes, 48th, 55th, Mopar, 22nd, 41st, and 45th from Smoky Hill to Hall. The second step of the process set forth in the Act involves adopting a resolution authorizing general obligation bond financing for the project. The Commission will consider that resolution at a future meeting after the main traffic way ordinance has been published and made effective. The ordinance makes this designation for streets included in this project and not previously designated as a main traffic way. The project includes the construction or reconstruction of West Frontage Road, connection of West 37th to Skyline, connection of Skyline to 41st, installation of shared use path along the west side of Vine, and upgrading pedestrian crossings. This is a little closer look of the west frontage road, and then the connections with 37th and Skyline. So options for next week should you decide to move this agenda item on, would be to approve the ordinance, decline, or provide us with other direction. And next week, we will ask for approval of the ordinance designating streets as main traffic ways.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda, D&J Land and Development Tax Increment Financing District. Ordinance adopting a TIF project plan providing I can't even say that. How do you say that?
Conveyance.
Thank you. Of certain property and approving a development agreement. Yikes.
So if you give me just a second here, Commission, we are going to get special counsel on the phone, Kevin Wempy, real quick here.
While he's dialing, Mayor, I have times that I look at a word and I think, is that word the?
Good evening, Kevin. This is Kim. We have you on speakerphone. We're going to start the agenda item here for the TIF. So once again, Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. This agenda item is the finish line for the D&J Land Marathon we've been on. After you take comments during the public hearing next week, we'll ask for approval of an ordinance that is multifaceted. It approves the TIF project plan, provides for conveyance of the 4.6-acre property from the city to the developer, and approves the development agreement that city staff and the developer have been negotiating over the next few weeks. And I didn't mention we have Kevin on the line in case you have, as we go here, since there are several items to this. If you have any questions, he can help us with that. So you've seen several items regarding this process with D&J Land. This is the timeline we've presented before. We've completed annexation as well as the TIF public hearing and ordinance. You've approved a resolution setting a public hearing on the project plan and the CID per state statute. In addition, we presented to the Planning Commission, City Planning Commission, and they unanimously agreed with the project plan, and they feel it's consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan for the city of Hayes. So finally, tonight's review of the project plan, property conveyance, and development agreement with the public hearing and ordinance for that next week. Project plan provides that the project encompasses approximately 45 acres, generally located at the northwest corner of 230th and Interstate 70. Developer seeks reimbursement of the TIF eligible project costs from TIF revenues and among other incentives. A portion of the project consists of land acquisition, the construction of a travel plaza and truck wash, site grading, the balance of the redevelopment district, and related infrastructure improvements, including extension of water, sewer, street, utilities, pedestrian improvements, include contiguous water and sewer line connecting to existing city service. The balance of the project consists of development of 9 outparcel pad sites in the redevelopment district for restaurant, retail, hotel, or other commercial uses. Developer anticipates selling or leasing those lots as pad ready. Developer improvements are expected to begin very soon in 2020 and take approximately 18 months. And then the rest of that development is planned for completion and commencement of operations beginning in 2022 that ultimately depend on the timing of the purchase and construction by the end users. According to the city's economic development policy, the TIF district will capture the incremental taxes only, not the sales taxes. So all taxing authorities will receive the retailer sales tax generated by the property. The TIF is a 20-year term according to statute and will be on a pay-as-you-go basis, which means the developer funds all of the financing of the development with no bonds issued by the city. This is a review of the numbers. Total construction cost of the travel plaza and truck wash is estimated to be $22.4 million. Upon sale of all the development lots, completion of phase 1, the developer estimates appraised value of phase 1 and all improvements to be $50.7 million. Developer also estimates that the phase 1 development will, upon full completion, create $38.7 million of annual retail sales and $3 million of monthly gas and diesel sales. Over the 20-year life of the TIF, it's expected it would generate $14.9 million in ad valorem property tax revenue, and the reimbursement of TIF eligible costs would be $12.4, so it excludes that $1.5 million KDOT grant. feasibility study, which is the unique portion of of this, was prepared using financial projections formulated by the developer. The study shows that if the project develops as expected, the estimated TIF revenues combined with the CID sales tax and the KDOT grant and the developer's private debt and equity will be sufficient to pay the costs. Feasibility study also called out some benefits to the local economy. It included a creation of 263 jobs, an increase in hotel room capacity, a needed regional travel plaza and truck wash, and an increase in sales tax revenue. And finally, the Wichita State University for Economic Development calculated a benefit to cost ratio of 1.66 for the city as it pertains to the full build out of the project. And then the conveyance of land portion of the TIF project plan allows for a transfer of city property to the developer. That portion is highlighted in red on this map. Development agreement does provide that if within 5 years the developer has not obtained a building permit or permits for the travel plaza and at least 4 other lots in the project, the city will withhold a pro rata portion of the TIF revenues up to $345,825. So that's what all I have up to this point. Assistant City Manager Colin Belzer is going to review the development agreement with you.
Good evening, Colin Belzer, Assistant City Manager. So the development agreement obviously establishes the expectations and responsibilities of each party. So staff has worked with Gilmore Bell, Kevin Wimpy, and they've been in contact with the developer's attorney to come up with this agreement. I view the highlights of the agreement. There's 6 elements: general provisions, tax increment financing, community improvement district, KDOT agreement, and conveyance of property. So some general provisions. This agreement will expire at the conclusion of both CID and TIF terms, unless it is terminated sooner. An amendment can only be done via mutual consent by resolution, so it would come back before you guys. The construction must begin within 6 months. Construction must be diligently, thank you, pursued to completion, except they do have some excusable delays in there that are built in, but they cannot stop work for more than 45 consecutive days or 90 days in the aggregate. The improvements must comply with the project budget, which is found in your agreement on Exhibit F, and then after completion of the developer improvements, they must submit a certificate of full completion. The city then has 30 days to perform any follow-up inspections and either approve or disapprove. Once it is approved by the city, certain public infrastructure will be dedicated to the city, and then we'll be provided a 1-year warranty from the developer. So if default occurs, the agreement can terminate. Either party can pursue legal action, and then for the city, we can discontinue any reimbursements. As Kim noted, developer will advance all eligible costs, no bonds will be issued by the city, and the developer reimbursed on a pay-as-you-go method. In addition, there is a provision that doesn't allow a developer, tenant, or landowner within the district to operate any type of sexually oriented business. I believe that was a question a few months ago. So that's also in there. For the tax increment financing, kind of a little bit of a repeat, but the TIF term's 20 years. The TIF cost cap is $13.9 million plus interest. So the interest can accrue on the certified but not yet reimbursed TIF eligible costs, and the interest can only be equal to the developer's actual cost of borrowing. No sales tax will be captured, and only eligible expenditures can be reimbursed. So every time the developer is ready to be reimbursed, they must submit a certificate of eligible project costs, which is found Exhibit D in your agreement. And in addition to that, they must provide itemized invoices, receipts, or other information certifying the costs. The city, each time a disbursement is made, will receive a 0.5% administrative fee to cover our administrative work with that, and then disbursements can occur no more than 2 times annually. For the Community Improvement District, again, the term is 22 years. The cost cap is $2.9 million plus interest, same provisions as the TIF, no larger than the actual borrowing cost of the developer. Only eligible expenditures can be reimbursed. They'll also use the certification that's found in the agreement. There's also another 0.5% administrative fee that's collected off those disbursements, and the disbursements can occur no more than quarterly. So one of the most unique aspects, I would say, of this agreement is the KDOT portion. This was transferred to the city from the county to do the intersection improvements at 230th Avenue and 55th Street. So later this month or in June, the city and KDOT will enter an agreement. It will come before you as a body to approve. This is a city-sponsored project, so it will be designed, let, contracted, and inspected separately from the other public improvements, and Driggs Design Group will be the consultant on this. The city will bear no direct costs to the KDOT project. We will be reimbursed for any costs that are initially financed by the city, and then no bonds will be issued. So the engineer, Driggs, estimates the intersection improvements at $1.76 million. KDOT will reimburse up to $1.5 million. And then the developer will reimburse us, or the KDOT will reimburse us up to that $1.5 million. And then anything above that, the developer will reimburse the city on a monthly basis. The amount above the estimate can be applied to the TIF cap above the 1.76. So that 13.9 million could go higher if the construction intersection is more 1.76. Because it's a separate project, the commission will approve a contract with the general contractor to do the work on the intersection improvements. It's scheduled to be a 2021 project. Before construction or before bid is awarded, the developer must provide the city with a letter of credit or cash deposit for that amount. And then lastly, the conveyance of property. Kim covered this pretty well. When the letter of credit or cash deposit is received, then we'll transfer the property to the developer for $0. And then if they don't complete the travel plaza in at least 4 lots within 5 years, we'll receive a pro rata portion to cover the cost of the land, which was factored at $75,000 per acre. And the tract is about 4.6 acres. And as a reminder, it's that little triangle in red, or yeah.
So next week, after closing the public hearing, your options will be to approve the ordinance that includes the project plan, the land conveyance, development agreement, or you can decline to approve the ordinance or provide us with other direction. And we will recommend and ask for approval of the ordinance next week. Do you have any questions?
Have we had any conversations or even any inclinations from the developer that this isn't going to proceed as we said it will? Or they said it will?
Both the director of Grow Hayes and I have had conversations with the developer, and they seem like they are chomping at the bit to move forward with this.
Good.
Moving on. Okay, moving on.
Thank you, Kevin.
Next item on the agenda, ordinance authorizing the creation of D&J Land and Development Community Improvement District.
Still Kim Rupp, Director of Finance.
Hi, Kim.
Last one. Developer D&J Land has submitted a petition to the city to create a Community Improvement District, or CID. They've included the application for economic development incentives and fees, and as required by the city's economic development policy. So before we get into the petition, thought we'd quickly review CIDs. They were enacted in 2009 to help cities promote business activity and economic development. CIDs are designed to be a special assessment and or special sales tax on a retail sales up to 2% max for no longer than 22 years. CIDs are used to help property owners reimburse themselves for public buildings, infrastructure, parking, landscape, and the promotion of tourism and recreational or cultural activities. These are not sales tax that already exist. They're an additional sales tax on retail sales in the defined property. Basically, it's something the landowner or the developer wishes to impose on themselves to help reimburse for the items mentioned above. This is a map of the property that you've seen numerous times, included in the petition. The red hashed area is the proposed CID, so it's a little different from the TIF. It encompasses the travel plaza and truck wash. D&J Land is asking for an imposition of 2% sales tax to help in the construction on the property. Proposed improvements include the installation of buildings, landscaping, lighting, infrastructure, utilities, and sidewalks, installation of parking lots, and methods of ingress and egress, all consistent with development of commercial property within the authorized zoning for the property. Total estimated project costs for the travel plaza and truck wash are at $6 million, with 4.3 of that eligible for CID reimbursement. The developer has projected that the 2% on the district will generate $2.92 million over the 22-year life. Again, this is a pay-as-you-go, very similar to the TIF. City will not issue bonds for the project costs. Those will be privately funded by the developer. So next week, after you hear comments during the public hearing on this one, your options will be to approve that ordinance, decline, or provide us with other direction. And again, we will be asking for approval of the ordinance for the CID.
Kim, just to be clear, they would sell off some of their pad sites. CID does not include those separate sites?
CID stays with the property, so the funds would still go to the DNJ land. So whoever buys within that district would be required to continue to collect the 2% for them. Unless there's some kind of monetary, they could have the option of having a monetary exchange there, whereby the buyer pays the seller a certain amount, but then they're speculating. So.
Okay. Moving on. Okay, moving on. Thank you, Mr. Rupp.
If it's okay with the commission, I would like to just give a quick update on the governor's plan to reopen Kansas, most specifically Phase 1. Phase 1 went into effect on the 4th and is expected to run through the 18th, where the transition to Phase 2 will happen. And I'm not going to go into great detail on Phase 1. I think everybody's familiar with the specifics of it. I want to talk mostly about what happens with the organization in the city of Hayes. Our facilities will remain closed during Phase 1 to the public. Parks, Public Works, City Hall, and the airport's the only thing that does remain open. Most of that reason is because we do have people still working in some capacity from home, and while they can answer phones from home, they can't cover public desk at home. We did discuss this at the staff meeting today, and we are making arrangements to open all the facilities back up at Phase 2 when Phase 2 happens. So again, it's expected to take place on the 19th of May, but it could be pushed back later if the governor deems that necessary. We're also putting some protective measures in to help protect the public and the employees in the event that we do open up. Dog park, playground, the shelters have opened up, and we are asking patrons to exercise proper social distancing and hygiene while they're utilizing our park facilities. We are not taking shelter reservations at this time because we do have a very limited group size limitation that still comes with Phase 1. That'll be reevaluated as we get into probably Phase 3. Restrooms are also closed because we're worried about sanitary conditions there, and we just don't have the staff to go around all the restrooms every half hour, every hour, and sanitize them. So those are closed for the time being. The aquatic park and Wilson Pool, it's still being evaluated. I can say it is highly unlikely Wilson Pool will open for the summer. I know Jeff Boyle, the Parks Director, has been in contact with Roger Bixenman at the Hayes Rec Commission about the Hayes Aquatic Park, and they are putting a tentative plan in place to open early June, but that's going to depend on the phasing you see in front of you happening, and we still need some questions answered from state officials because right now it's a little bit murky on how you handle group size limitations at a place like the Hayes Aquatic Park. There's been a lot of banter back and forth on like the city manager's listserv on cities that are just not opening versus making plans to open. But the truth of the matter is we don't have really clear information at this point. As far as the commission meetings and work session, as the millions of people at home are watching right now, we are still closed to the public being broadcast. That will take place next week. We are making arrangements to accommodate people that want to come take part in the public hearing next week. And then you'll see a fairly sparse chair arrangement in the room. This is what we can handle and ensure social distancing in the commission chamber. It's not a very big room. If we do transition to a Phase 2, what we'll probably do is move the commission back to the dais, and then staff move everybody back to the dais. Leave the chair arrangement the same, and let enough public in until the chair arrangements or the chairs are full. But we would open it back up to the public at that time. And then theoretically, in a phase 3 and a full open, then we can go back to a normal seating arrangement. That would be our suggested plan. So I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have on this.
We have a question. This photo right here. I was at this park just a couple days ago and extremely busy. Have we thought about, I know it'd be a cost, about putting up some signs just or making sure people understand about social distancing or parks totally different? Or, I mean, how do we, because when I was down there was a lot of people and they were extremely close. And, we've been doing so good here in Ellis County. Just be nice to keep it that way. And I just wondering what the thought is on that.
I'm not sure if the Parks Director has had any plans to put up signs, but I can tell you Colin and I participated in a League of Kansas Municipalities conference call today. And that's one of the things they talked about as parks were open back up, is to put up, suggested you might want to put up some signage. I mean, there's sort of an inherent acceptance of risk when you go to a public park that you have to pay attention. And,
I agree.
but this is a bit of a different time, so it's one of the things I wanted to visit with Colin about and just see if we might just have some quick and dirty signage printed out and put them next to the play equipment and shelters and things like that.
I mean, it was very nice to see so many people out having a good time. Park looks great, but there's a lot of people, and I just would hate us to go backwards and where we're at. So.
Yeah, and I would encourage people that especially the play equipment. I mean, Massey Park, we took the yellow tape down, and it wasn't 20 minutes later that playground equipment was full of kids. I would encourage the parents there with your kids, make sure they understand we aren't sanitizing that playground equipment. We do not have the capacity to sanitize that. So if your child is playing on that, you need to make sure that you sanitize their hands, possibly before and after, to ensure their protection.
I would think people would parent their kids, hopefully. I mean, it's hopefully.
I don't mind spending a little money on some signage, but I just don't think it's our responsibility to tell these parents how they're going to gather these people. I mean,
And I don't disagree with you.
yeah, I mean, that's a tough thing for me. Because I'm one that we're kind of staying pretty tight, even though things are, but that's all I'll say.
That was all I had.
And I appreciate you bringing that up, as we open up the county, and, it's nice to see people, driving down Main Street. It's not a ghost town anymore, but just, won't be, like you said, be smart. And, there are risks out there and stuff, but we're doing a great job in Ellis County, and I just hope we can continue that way. And, we've shown we can, but, there are risks out there, and let's get it over with so, we don't have to go through this again, hopefully. So, thanks for the info. Appreciate it. Mr. Millick?
Well, I'm going to echo what you said, that, people in Hayes and Dallas County has done a great job on this COVID-19, keeping the numbers low, but we can't give it up yet. And if we want to get this completely behind us, everybody needs to stay on the ball and do what they can to physical distance and also think about the other people, keeping your neighbors safe. I wear a mask when I go into retail places, and it's not necessarily for me, but I'm trying to show the respect to the people that are working there. They're wearing a mask, and I appreciate them going to work so that I can go in and buy what I need. And so that is my respect to them, and I think everyone needs to show those workers respect by wearing this mask as long as the health department says that we need to. So, thank you.
Mr. Burgess?
I don't have anything to add.
Mr. Reuter?
No, those are all good points, and continue to follow the Ellis County Health Department, KDHE, and the CDC's recommendations. And as we start opening up, make sure you're continuing to keep you and your families and your community safe by, if you're still showing these symptoms, it hasn't gone away completely. Just make sure that you're protecting yourself and your family first, and just follow the recommendations as we open back up to hopefully some normalcy to finish out 2020.
Mr. Jacobs?
I agree with all that, but I like good news. So I'm going to have some good news. I hope I don't embarrass you, council. I'd just like to congratulate our city council, John Bird, and his lovely bride, Joanne, on their marriage last Friday. And I'm absolutely thrilled for him. I've known John for a long, long, long time. And that look on his face is nice. Congratulations.
Exactly. Congratulations.
Yes, you are.
Oh, you're saying positive news. It's so positive to see people out and about in Hayes again. But like I said, I hate to be a dead horse. I was at the county commission meeting and the county health, they were giving their talk and, just all the positive news for Ellis County. But, I'm for one as a business owner. I want to keep it that way. I want people to come to Hayes and come to our businesses. And, last 2 days we had, Hayes is pretty much known to be a leader in Western Kansas. And people from Norton, were coming here because they felt safe and they wanted to get out, and that's, but people are coming here from other towns and let's, be smart. And I think you're going to see some restaurants that maybe were on the edge of keeping stuff clean, maybe doing a little bit better job. So I think that's good for all of us. And it's just exciting to be back open. I can't tell you guys how much excitement it is to see people in your business. It's and like I said, I give kudos to people in this county because of what we're doing and keeping the risk down as much as we can. So we're adjourned.